Welcome back to Chess Tactic Today, everyone. Today's matchup is a thriller straight out of the titled Tuesday arena. Ian Nepomniachtchi brings his trademark speed and creativity, but Tuan Minh fires back with fearless counterplay from move 3. From an explosive Ruy Lopez gone wild to a tactical race with passed pawns flying down both flanks, this game turns into pure calculation chaos. Buckle up, because this one is non-stop firepower until the very end. 1. Nepomniachtchi, playing as white, opens with the king's pawn, immediately staking a claim in the center of the board. This is the most popular and ambitious first move in chess. 1. F5, and Tuan Minh responds in kind, pawn to F5. We're heading into classical, open-game territory, a battleground where both sides will fight for space and development from the very start. 2. F3, white develops the knight to F3, a textbook move that attacks black's F5 pawn and prepares for kingside castling. No surprises yet, just solid, principled chess. 2. C6, black does the same, developing the knight to C6 to defend the pawn. This is the most common and reliable response, setting the stage for a wide variety of openings. 3. B5, and there it is, the Ruy Lopez. Nepo brings his bishop out to b5, putting indirect pressure on the knight that's defending the f5 pawn. This opening is known for its rich strategic complexity. 3. F5, whoa, hold on. Tuan Minh throws down the gauntlet with pawn to f5. This is the Schliemann gambit, one of the sharpest and most aggressive replies to the Ruy Lopez. Black is saying, forget slow strategy, let's fight right now. This move spices things up immediately. 4. D3, Nepo reacts calmly with pawn to d3. He's not interested in the wild main lines where white takes the f5 pawn. Instead, he shores up his center and prepares to develop his pieces smoothly. 4. F0, black captures on f4, opening the f-file for the rook. This is a key part of the Schliemann plan, create imbalances and open lines for attack. 5. D0, white recaptures, pawn takes on f4, restoring the balance in the center. The position is now very open and piece activity is going to be everything. 5. F6, black develops the knight to f6, putting pressure on white's newly placed f4 pawn. This is a very natural and active developing move. 6. Nepomniachtchi castles kingside, a very wise decision to get the king to safety before the central tension boils over. Safety first, attack second. 6. BC5, and now black develops the light-squared bishop to c5, taking aim at white's weak f2 pawn. The game is heating up and both sides are bringing their pieces into the fight. 7. BxC6. White decides to resolve the tension on c6, bishop takes knight. This move damages black's pawn structure, creating doubled c-pawns, but it also gives up the bishop pair, which could be a long-term advantage for black. 7. BxC6. Black recaptures, pawn takes bishop. Now the b-file is open for black's rook and the bishop on c8 has a clear path to develop. It's a classic trade-off, structure versus activity. 8. F5, Nepo cashes in, knight takes the pawn on f5. White is now officially a pawn up, but this knight could become a target. Is the extra pawn worth the risk? That's the central question of the game right now. 8. Tuan Minh castles kingside, getting his own king to safety. He isn't worried about the pawn, he's focused on completing his development and building an attack. 9. D3, white repositions the knight to d3. A multi-purpose move. It gets the knight out of danger, controls the center, and prepares to challenge black's active pieces. 9. F4, and black strikes back, knight takes the pawn on f4. Tuan Minh immediately wins the pawn back and the position is equal in material once again. The game is incredibly dynamic. 10. C5, white's knight takes the bishop on c5. This simplifies the position a bit, removing one of black's most active attacking pieces. 10. C5, black recaptures with the knight. Now black's knight is beautifully placed on c5 from where it eyes key squares and puts pressure on white's position. 11. C3, Nepo develops his last minor piece, knight to c3, a standard, solid move to control the center and prepare to connect the rooks. 11. D6, black plays pawn to d6, solidifying the center and giving the dark-squared bishop a path to enter the game. A very sensible move. 12. B3, white develops the bishop to e3, challenging black's powerful knight on c5. Nepo wants to trade off that strong piece. 12. D7, black retreats the knight to d7. A wise choice. Instead of trading, Tuan Minh preserves his knight, which can be rerouted to a better square later. 13. Nefer. Nepomniachtchi moves his knight into the center to Efer. This is a very active square, and the knight puts pressure on black's position. 13. K8. Black develops the queen to E8, subtly preparing to challenge white's control of the e-file and connecting the rooks. The strategic dance continues. 14. QD4. White centralizes the queen to D4. A very powerful square for the queen, from where it controls a lot of territory and keeps an eye on both sides of the board. 14. Nefiv, and now black's knight hops into Efiv. This is a fantastic outpost for the knight, creating immediate threats against white's kingside. 15. F4. Nepo challenges the knight immediately with pawn to F4. He wants to kick that knight out of the center, but this move also weakens the squares around his own king. A double-edged decision. 15. Ng4. The knight doesn't retreat, it jumps forward to G4. A very aggressive move that puts more pressure on white's kingside, specifically targeting the bishop on E3. 16. Rion. White brings the rook to Ian, defending the bishop and adding more firepower to the crucial e-file. The tension is building with every move. 16. C5. Black strikes on the queenside with pawn to C5, kicking white's powerful queen away from the center, a great example of creating counterplay. 17. QD3. The queen retreats to D3. It's still an active piece, but it's not as dominant as it was on D4. 17. BF5, and black keeps up the pressure. Bishop to F5, attacking the queen again. Tuan Minh is not giving Nepomniachtchi a moment to breathe. 18. B-D2. Nepo is forced to block with his bishop on D2. This is a bit awkward as it tangles up his own pieces. Black is slowly taking control of the initiative. 18. QG6. Queen to G6. A fantastic move. The queen adds to the kingside attack, puts pressure on the e-file, and eyes white's vulnerable king. The plot is thickening now. 19. BC3. White repositions the bishop to C3, getting it out of the pin and preparing to challenge black's control of the long diagonal. 19. Re8. Black brings the rook to E8, doubling up on the e-file. This is a classic idea you can use in your own games. Piling up on an open file creates immense pressure. 20. QC4+. Nepomniachtchi tries to create some counterplay with queen to C4 check. He's trying to disrupt black's coordination and force some exchanges. 20. B6. Black calmly blocks the check with bishop to Essex. This move not only stops the check but also improves the bishop's position, attacking white's queen. 21. Kafir. The queen swings over to a fur. From here, it puts pressure on black's queenside pawns and eyes some tricky ideas. But is it too far from the kingside action? 21. H6. A quiet but important move, pawn to H6. This prevents any backrank checkmate ideas and gives the king a little escape square. A good prophylactic move. 22. Ng3. White's knight on Efer was under pressure, so Nepo moves it back to G3. From here, it helps defend the king. 22. BD5. Black repositions the bishop to D5, a beautiful central square. This bishop now controls key diagonals and restricts white's pieces. 23. F5, and here we go. Nepo pushes pawn to F5, trying to break open the kingside and create a decisive attack. This is a very risky move. It could win the game, or it could backfire spectacularly. The fireworks are about to begin. 23. Arzione. Black responds calmly. Rook takes the rook on Ian. This looks like a simple exchange, but it's part of a much deeper, more dangerous plan. Watch closely now. 24. FXG6. White captures on G6, pawn takes pawn. This opens the F-file and looks incredibly dangerous for black. Nepomniachtchi must have thought he was winning here, but he missed something truly special. 24. Rf2. Stop everything. Rook to F2. Oh my goodness, what an absolutely stunning, brilliant move. This is one of those moves that makes you fall in love with chess. Can you see the idea? The rook is offered for free, but it completely paralyzes white's position. It traps the queen on a fur and threatens a devastating backrank checkmate on phone. This move flips the entire game on its head. 25. K8+, and what can white do? After that breathtaking sacrifice, Nepo finds the only move that doesn't lose on the spot, queen to E8 check. He is forced to give up his own queen just to stop the immediate checkmate. This is a move of pure desperation. 25. RZ8. Black's rook simply takes the queen on E8. The tactical whirlwind is over and the smoke is clearing. When we look at the board now, black is up a crucial pawn and is heading into a completely winning endgame. 26. RX F2. White's rook takes the brave black rook on F2, but the damage is done. The game has transitioned from a complex middle game to a technical endgame where black has all the advantages. 26 nx f2 and knight takes the rook on f2. The board is much clearer now. Black's active king and extra pawn should be enough to secure the win. 27 kx f2, the king recaptures. Now it's a pure endgame. Let's see how Tuan Minh converts this advantage. 27 b's atwo and he starts immediately. Bishop takes the pawn on atwo. Black is now up 2 pawns and white's position is crumbling. 28 h4. White pushes the h-pawn, a desperate attempt to create some counterplay on the king side, but it's likely too little too late. 28 b-bone. Black's bishop moves to bone, targeting the seat-wo pawn. The bishop is a monster, slicing across the board and causing all sorts of problems for white. 29 h5. White continues to push the h-pawn, but black is not distracted from the main plan on the queen side. 29 bx seat-wo, there it is, bishop takes the pawn on seat-wo. That's a third extra pawn for black. This is now a masterclass in endgame conversion. 30 n-phone. The knight moves to phone, trying to redeploy and help defend against the coming pawn storm. 30 b-done, the bishop repositions to done, a fantastic move preparing to support the advance of the queenside pawns. 31 and g3, the knight hops back to g3 but it's just shuffling around, white is out of constructive plans. 31 bg4, and now the bishop lands on g4, pinning the knight and completely dominating the kingside. Every move from black is precise and powerful. 32 bafiv, white tries to get the bishop active but it's a lonely piece in a sea of trouble. 32 c6, pawn to c6, a solid move to prepare the advance of the d-pawn. 33 bc7, white's bishop retreats to c7 but the tide is unstoppable. 33 d5 and here comes the d-pawn, pawn to d5. The pawns are starting to roll and this is the beginning of the end for white. 34 bd6, the bishop moves to d6 trying to create a blockade. 34 c4 but black just keeps pushing, pawn to c4. This pawn do is like a steamroller and white's pieces can only watch in horror. 35 bc5. Another bishop move, but it's just delaying the inevitable. 35 the fiv, now the pawn joins the party. Tuan Minh is creating a passed pawn, the ultimate weapon in the endgame. 36 bd4, white tries to control some squares with the bishop, but there are too many threats to handle. 36 a-fur, the pawn marches forward, it's getting closer and closer to becoming a queen. 37 k-phone, the king moves over trying to help stop the pawns, but it's too far away. 37 c3, a clever move, pawn to c3, sacrificing a pawn to deflect the bishop and clear the way for the d-pawn. 38 bx c3, white takes the pawn as there is no other choice. 38 c5, and after the bishop is deflected, pawn to c5 attacks the other bishop, a brilliant tactical sequence. 39 k-f2, king to f2, Nepo is just trying to survive but the position is hopeless. 39 d4, here comes the d-pawn again. The passed pawns are simply overwhelming. 40 b-d2, the bishop moves back to d2 but it cannot stop the pawn avalanche. 40 c4, another pawn push. Black's pawns are marching relentlessly toward the finish line. 41 bb4, white tries to set up a final blockade with the bishop. 41 r-bait, and now the rook, which has been quiet for a while, joins the attack, rook to bait preparing to support the final push. 42 b3, bishop to a3, a desperate attempt to stop the c-pawn. 42 c3, but it doesn't matter, pawn to c3, this pawn is now just 2 squares away from becoming a queen. 43 bx c3, pawn takes pawn, white is forced to capture. 43 rb3, and now rook to b3, attacking the bishop and preparing to clear the way for the d-pawn. What a powerful rook. 44 bc5, the bishop moves to c5 to escape the attack. 44 dx-c3, pawn takes pawn and now black has a passed c-pawn that is unstoppable. 45 b3, white places the bishop on e3 but it's a futile gesture. 45 seat-wo, pawn to seat-wo, 1 square away from promotion, the end is near. 46 b-d-wo, bishop to d-wo, a final attempt to block the pawn. 46 a3, but black ignores it and pushes the pawn, now there are 2 unstoppable passed pawns. 47 n-phone, knight to phone, white is completely paralyzed. 47 atwo and a pawn to atwo, now both pawns are on the 7th rank, an incredible sight. 48 n3, knight to e3, a last desperate check. 48 Rz3, Rook simply takes the knight, a simple and effective solution. 49 Kz3, the king takes the rook, but it's far, far too late. 49 Aeon equals Q, and there it is. The little pawn that could marches all the way down the board to Aeon and becomes a brand new queen, a spectacular finish to a brilliantly played game. With that, Nepomniachtchi resigns. What a game! From the fiery Schliemann gambit to that unbelievable rook sacrifice on f2, this was a masterpiece of attacking chess by Tuan Minh. It just goes to show that even at the highest levels, a moment of tactical brilliance can decide everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Chess Tactic Today.